I started working in Canberra at the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, where I was the Ethnomusicology Research Fellow. And I persuaded the school to introduce a course in Aboriginal music. So while I was working at IATSIS, I taught a course for about 10 years, part-time in the school. And then subsequent to my retirement from IATSIS, I came here as a visiting fellow in 2000. And I spent another 10 or 11 years here as a visiting fellow, so my role in the school became more intense then, and it included other things as well as teaching that course in Aboriginal music. The second 10 years when I was a visiting fellow here, I spent quite a bit of time running the graduate program, so I was the graduate convener for more than half of that time. So, and the graduate program, graduate research program was then in its infancy when I started here as a visiting fellow in the year 2000, and we'd only had one PhD graduate at that time, and then over the next 10 or 11 years we built it up to more than 20 students at any one time. I think the shift was really in the period 1989 to 1990. In 1990 was the beginning of the course on Aboriginal music, so it institutionalised a course on Aboriginal music, and the course on Aboriginal music is still being taught. So for 25 years now, that's become a standard element of the school curriculum. So I think 1990 was a really important date. Preceding that, in 1989, 1 year earlier, there was a course introduced in Asian music, and that was introduced by Coralie Rockwell, who played quite an important role in the school. Unfortunately, she died only a few years after that, but that was the first course to be introduced. The first course in non-Western music was the course on Asian music, and it was a year before the Aboriginal music course. We introduced a course called a World Music course, and that was a practical course. Students could take didgeridoo lessons, they could take courses in Chinese music. We purchased a gamelan, an Indonesian gamelan, and students could take that as part of their coursework. And gradually we developed a relationship with the National Folk Festival. Interestingly, a lot of music students, performance students who were doing classical music performance in the school were involved in the National Folk Festival, but it wasn't recognised by the school, initially. So that was a gradual change also when we realised that, the relationship with the National Folk Festival was really important, and so that developed. We had a world music concert every year from about the year 2000. I'm not sure whether that's continued, but so it was a gradual process of incorporating and institutionalising the representation of non-Western music. And I think now, and I should say, institutionalising music which wasn't classical Western music, which is a very narrow perspective if you just include Western classical music. So it's now folk music, it's now Aboriginal music, it's now Asian music. So, and we also purchased during that time, 2000 to 2010, a set of African drums. So they became incorporated into the World Music course. We established a World Music Choir that was done by Ruth Lee Martin, Dr. Ruth Lee Martin, who has now left the school, but she had a course, a World Music Choir, and she taught that every year. So these things gradually widen the perspective of the school. In 2006, I became the Secretary General of the International Council for Traditional Music, ICTM. Now, ICTM's history goes back to 1947, and it was a sort of founding non-government organisation of UNESCO, and it's been associated with UNESCO ever since. And in 2006, the Secretariat came to Canberra. And so that moment, I think, I thought was a really seminal moment in the history of the school. You know, the eyes of the world were on the School of Music because the Secretariat was here. So it had to be supported by the Vice-Chancellor, it had to be supported by the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, and it had to be supported by the head of the School of Music. And it was launched in January 2006. It stayed here for 5 years, 5.5 years. It was launched in 2006 by the Vice-Chancellor, then Vice-Chancellor Ian Chubb. So I think that really was a very important and seminal moment for me in the history of the school, and it sort of cemented this broadening of the view of the School of Music and what music was about and what we should consider in a School of Music.